This is a tradition we have maintained since the outbreak of the pandemic in Nigeria. As the Chief Security Officer of the state, I have an obligation to update you on what we are doing to protect the Anambra from this virus. Updates on the COVID-19 cases in Anambra State. In the Anambra, our dear state has continued to do well in the fight against this virus. As we stand now, we have 8 patients in our protective care center. We also have 69 individuals on home quarantine and 2 individuals in facility-based quarantine. We shall continue to push back on this pandemic and reduce its presence in Anambra State. On a sad note, I want to observe that we now have 2 dead persons on this COVID case. This second patient was admitted in a private hospital where he was being attended to for a disease is not related to COVID, and eventually was discharged. 2 days after the discharge, the candidate developed symptoms that are similar to COVID, and this was tested and confirmed to be COVID case, and he died the next day. So that's what has happened. The COVID-19 committee that we have set up in the 326 wards and local government across Anambra State are helping us in driving the campaign to every nook and cranny of the state. In the Anambra, a likely outcome of the running of more COVID tests in the state is that there may be more reported cases in Anambra State. But I would like to assure you that we have made adequate arrangements to handle the challenges arising from the COVID pandemic. In the Anambra, we shall overcome this virus by the grace of God. The COVID-19 law. As you are probably aware, on Thursday last week, I signed the COVID-19 law bill into law. Under this new COVID-19 law, it is an offense, among other things that is contained there, it's an offense to be seen in public without a face mask. The offense attracts a fine of 10,000 naira or some hours of community service. I would like to re-emphasize that my administration is determined to enforce this law. So I advise every eligible Anambra to comply with this law to avoid paying the fine or doing the community service, or both. Reminders to traders and religious groups. In the Anambra, the information we receive from different quarters indicate that our people have started lowering their guard on COVID-19 protocols. I have it on good authority that traders in various markets no longer comply with the enforcement of wearing of face masks and washing of hands. I want to warn that we may consider shutting down specific markets if this trend is not halted immediately. I've also received similar reports from the churches and other religious groups in the state and mosques that most of them have discarded the wearing of face masks. I urge the leadership of religious bodies in Anambra State to ensure compliance with this standard of protocol of COVID-19 without further delays. And holding area in hospitals. In the Anambra, we have continued to evolve new approaches to handling of COVID-19 pandemic. We have observed that while ramping up the number of COVID-19 tests we run in our dear state, it is important, it is even more important to ensure that patients suspected of having COVID-19 virus do not multiply the spread to the other people. As a result of that, every hospital in Anambra State must set up a mini holding ward where patients whose samples have been taken for COVID-19 tests can be kept while the result of the test is awaited. This approach will minimize the chances of patients spreading the virus through multiple contacts. Training of volunteers for COVID-19. We shall continue a specialized training on how to manage COVID-19 cases in Anambra State. We want to train more volunteer doctors, nurses, cleaners, and other medical personnel whose services are needed in the management of patients in the hospitals. The Ministry of Information will soon create the necessary awareness on the proposed training and how more volunteers can be enrolled. Centralized sampling and reporting of COVID-19 cases. In the Anambra, all members of Nigerian Medical Association practicing in Anambra State are expected to inform the Ministry of Health once they collect samples of suspected COVID-19 patients for testing. A situation where some members had collected samples and sent to the testing centers on their own is no longer allowed. All COVID-19 efforts in Anambra State with regards to the collection of samples and the presentation of specimens to NCDC must be centralized going forward. Indigenous manufacture of personal protective equipment. In the Anambra, as we heave up our efforts to combat COVID-19 in our dear state, we have set up a mechanism that will challenge our people to bring out their ingenuity in the manufacturing of personal protective equipment. Throughout history, our people have responded to the challenges that force us to look inwards to solutions that will guarantee our survival. I have no doubt that we have enough talent in Anambra State to provide us some durable personal protective equipment within the shortest possible time. A kind word to our health workers. Once again, I wish to commend the great efforts of our health care workers who are on front line of defense against this virus. I've been reliably informed that our healthcare workers have since raised their game as the number of cases arises in the state. That is the spirit of India Anambra Dalun. Fighting of COVID-19 by boosting immune system. In Anambra, our knowledge of this pandemic has continued to grow in recent times. It has been discovered that when we boost our immune systems, we give our bodies a chance to resist all infections, including COVID-19 virus. I would advise that we eat healthy food and the right supplements as recommended by your doctors so that you can boost your immune systems. Conclusion. In conclusion, dear Anambra, we have responded very well to difficulties imposed on our way of life by this pandemic. We have fought back to reckoning by complying with the standard response prescribed by the World Health Organization and the Nigerian Center for Disease Control for COVID-19. I have no doubt that if we continue to maintain the same level of discipline, we will be giving ourselves enough headroom to overcome this pandemic. God bless Anambra State. God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Thank you.